All right, everybody. We are live Wednesday night, and it's 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've got Mr. Nicholas Rhodes from Pictor. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Howdy.
We finally made it. It's been crazy since PBX, and I know you've probably been pretty nuts, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Very much looking forward to it.
So, I think the biggest thing over the last year or so has been AI. Um, and now it's still pretty big, and you guys are on the forefront of what I see, some crazy stuff you guys are doing with AI. And then what really piqued my interest is because I used to own a baseball card shop when I was in high school and early
Oh, no way.
college. Yeah, so the trading cards was like, gimme, gimme, gimme. And I know they've been around for a while, but I think it's now become more of scalable um,
Mhm.
piece for us photo boothers. So, and I really loved what you had put together. I liked everybody's, but for me personally, the one that I got, just the process you had was so streamlined and polished at the show. I was enamored by it, and it just really forced me to not only like get into it, but learn how to print these things out too. And so I'm just glad you're on the show. But before we get into all that stuff, I wanted you to kind of introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit of your backstory. Like, who are you? Where do you
Yeah,
come from? Yeah.
great question. So, on a dark and stormy night, no, I grew up in the suburbs of New York. I mean, I can the real stuff. I can give you guys the 42-year version of this, just day by day. No, I grew up in the suburbs of New York, kind of like always, always, always. Hey, Dave.
Howdy.
Always wanted to get into Manhattan. From the time I was a little kid.
Hmm.
I ended up in Boston for college, where it was like very, very early internet days. So what I studied was new media,
Yep.
which was like the era of red text on a black background. And it was very exciting. I'll never forget the day that my teacher, Jim Sheldon, called us all into a room, and he was so excited. And we all watched, I think it was on roadrunner.com or something. We watched like a 3-minute video buffer for like an hour and a half on a screen together. And he was like, "This is going to change everything." And we all thought it was like the dumbest thing ever. Like, why would you ever put video on the internet?
Yeah.
And here we are now live streaming direct to Facebook, right? So a lot has changed since my initial education. But one of the things that was really formative for me there was I was a double major, new media and photography.
Okay.
And with new media at the time, or not new media, with social networks starting at the time, MySpace was sort of like the boss, right?
Yeah.
And I was very involved in the music scene. And I also had a digital camera, which meant that my ability to take a photo of a band and put it on the internet superseded the quality of that photo, right? It was just like the fact that I could take a photo and get it on the internet was like very impressive for a lot of people. I happen to be a decent photographer, pat
Yeah.
myself on the back, but I could have as well just not have been a good photographer, right? So I started this little business where I was photographing a band. And, at any given night in Boston, you go to a venue, one band playing, there's usually two or three other on the roster for the night. So I
Hmm.
would reach out to them on MySpace and essentially be like, "Hey, I'm going to be there photographing the headliner or the opener. If you throw me some cash, I'll get you some photos." So like in my head, I was making like drug dealer money. I was making like $100 to $200 a night, being at live music events where I was going to be anyways, uh, and that was my racket in college. So when I moved back to New York, I tried to start the same kind of system, but it just didn't really work in New York City because there was so much more noise. But what I did
Hmm.
find was if I showed up at an event with a very large camera, so like this is something we'll talk about later, but I will mention it now, and I always mention it with our clients. People get very caught up on what the output is, and not
Hmm.
enough people, in my opinion, talk about what the experience is before you get the output, right? So I
Yeah.
very intentionally had my old 24 by 70 lens. I put on that giant lens hood that came with it. It was like 3 inches long. And I was walking around with like something bigger than my arm because I just wanted people to notice me and talk to me. I'm a lot shyer than I come across. So that was my gimmick, right? And so also unlike Boston, no offense to anyone who lives in Boston, I'm the only New Yorker I've ever met who goes on record as liking Boston. But there's not a ton of personal fashion in Boston. It's like, whereas in New York City, everyone is like their own personality and running around and being their own individual. But in Boston, when I was shooting these bands, I would take one or two photos of the crowd to prove that people came to the show. Whereas in New York, the people in the audience were often way more interesting than what was happening on stage. So I
Hmm.
started documenting that and then also utilizing that skill that sounds so funny now of being able to take a photo and put it on the internet. I started a website where I would take photos of people and do literally just that. So before we called it an influencer, there was like personal brands and bloggers and things like that.
Hmm.
So at the height of my website, I was doing 150,000 page views on average a day of people from around the world coming to see what the drunk kids in New York City did last night.
Oh,
So
wow.
what started as my hobby, um, I had worked after college. I worked in print media, so I worked in magazines because I was so sick of coding. The irony now that we're here talking about new software that I worked on. I worked in print media, and in 2008, the last magazine that I worked at went out of business. And I was like, oh, I guess I can do this thing that's been my hobby to figure out how to make money until um, I get another job. And then I found out the sad way that magazines were never hiring ever again, and that we're in a deep recession. But do you know what people love doing when they're depressed? Drinking and dancing. So
Yep.
I actually was pretty successful in that time. And at that point, now, we go out and everything is documented. But at that point in 2008, which is hard to imagine, like no cell phones, no smartphones, just
Hmm.
barely.
Yeah.
Um, and anything that did take a photo was like, hot garbage. So I was really playing an integral part in the nightlife, but there was no one who was wanting to pay me. Like the first time I got paid was like for 3 drink tickets, and I thought that was the best thing on the face of the earth.
Hmm.
But eventually, I realized that if I controlled the budget, I could get paid. So I started throwing events and using photography as a tool to build FOMO to then have people come to future events. So that was
Oh,
sort of my
wow.
ray into that. I also very early realized that in order to make money in that way, I needed to get people to the event. So I had the website where people could see photos from last night and I could promote future events, but I also needed a way to collect email addresses, which is where the
Right.
photo booth came in. So
Hmm.
there have been multiple times in my life where had things like the internet existed as it does now, I wouldn't have had to invent things. But like I literally invented a photo booth in its modern form, right? Like in my head on my own, I was like, how could I take a photo and get people's email addresses in real time? I know they want this photo. So the original version of that was literally me taking someone's photo and someone else getting their email address, right? And then we started over time streamlined it. We built our own photo booth sharing software. We built a lot of these things, these tools that didn't exist at scale yet, right? So very early on when I built my initial sharing software, it was beautiful. And there was this really fun thing where we did a lot of events on Friday and Saturday nights, which is also when Facebook decided that very few people would be using Facebook in comparison to other times of the week. So they would always push updates, which would break our software because at that point in time, people shared directly to the social network. They didn't want to email or text it, they want it right on their Facebook account, which is
Hmm.
very different than it is now. People kind of collect these things and decide how to tell their story. But the social currency then was I was at this thing, it happened now, and you're not here, versus
Yeah.
the kind of curated approach that we do now. So that's kind of the shortest version of the story I can give you. But the connect the dots from there is people didn't want to pay photographers the way they used to, but surprisingly, they like paying for iPads on sticks. Couldn't tell you why. And so I was also trying to figure out how there could be more of me, and there couldn't ever. I had other photographers. We had 5, 6 photographers working for me, but at that point, if I wasn't the person at the event because I had become a kind of a personality around it, people weren't
Hmm.
excited about the photography and they didn't know where to look for it the next day either. But then when we started doing the iPad booths, we were literally able to have these in multiple places and people were paying for them. and we were able to get different parts of the budget, right? It's part of the marketing budget because we're giving you an email for your email list. So that's kind of how I ended up here. So the unique part of me is I worked in print media where I understood what advertisers needed in an event. I worked on the event side, promoting events and knowing what I needed to do to make people come to an event. And now we create those experiences for our clients at OutSnap. So for anyone who doesn't know, I run OutSnap, which is a photo booth company. And we started building our own software to service our clients and our needs at OutSnap. And just a few weeks ago in Las Vegas, we released that publicly as well.
Yeah, we've seen like some teasers all the way leading up to PBX, and it's like out of nowhere because there's a lot of, I mean, there's enough photo booth apps out there, photography apps, but you definitely stands out. It's unique in its own right. Um, and so this is from what I understand, Outsnapped. It's your own software that you use for your own company. They've now started Pictor, right?
Yeah. So there have been multiple times throughout the years where we've had clients come to us and ask for something that seemingly to a non-programmer brain is very simple. But for anyone who does know how to program, if you've built something sequentially, for example, moving where you collect the email address to before you take a photo is not very easy because you end up with what's called like technical debt, right?
Yep.
So we would often have these questions or these requests that seem so easy, and like, you'd be on the phone with Mr. Pepsi, and Mr. Pepsi, for whatever reason, needs this thing and is not happy unless he has this thing. And then you don't get that event because Mr. Pepsi needed that thing that he couldn't even tell you why he needed it, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of times where that came up, and so we had the real genesis of Pictor is that we had some clients wanting AI experiences now 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. And we couldn't get any of the existing softwares to take us seriously, right? And rightfully so. I mean, we were one client for these folks, but we had our clients coming to us and saying, hey, we want this cutting edge stuff. We want to like do this thing. We're doing, this, we can talk about it now, but we did this really big campaign with SoFi that they were working on for quite some time, and they brought us in on the in-person aspect of it, where they had this whole campaign about reimagining your life using AI. So people who wouldn't normally be essentially the rich person as AI would imagine it could see what their life would be like with a yacht or with money or with any number of things. We created the in-person version of what was their 30-second TV spot that was running, so people could interact with it in real life. And those folks, in believing in us, allowed us to start the software company because we literally built this thing for them. And at first it had no front end. It was just like a really, really powerful back end that programmers, like I couldn't even set up an event. We had to have our programmers do it all on the back end. And then slowly but surely we built the front end. And one of the things that has always been really important to me in this process of bringing this to other folks is I'm a rising tide raises all ships person, right? I think it should be easy for people to do very cool things. If you can imagine it, it should be easy for you to do it. Not that there isn't a barrier of entry. There still is. You have to learn the software. You have to learn design. There's things that I can't do for you. There's no silver bullet. But what I can do for you is make an event work very easily with lots of very cool bells and whistles, right? Or when Mr. Pepsi comes to you and says, I need the email before the photo's taken, we can do that because we've built everything to be modular. So yeah, those were the things. And I think the other thing that is distinctly different is we're the only photo booth software that is run by a photo booth company. And what that means is two things. Similar to what I was talking about, the experience for the guest, I have thought a lot about the experience from the photo booth owner perspective. The things that have been really difficult for me to scale my company, training someone to use software. Wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to spend hours training them because you can make a preset that they could just copy and change things, right?
Yeah.
Or event IDs, so you didn't have to give people login information. All sorts of these different little nuanced things that over the years we've wished that we had, and we were able to build them. The other thing is it means that we battle test everything, and you don't ever get to play with it until it's event ready, right? Like we're not going to ever crash your events because I can't crash Mr. Pepsi's event, right? So we have to battle test QA everything before it gets done, right? So taking a lot of these considerations into the initial build was really, really important to me.
Mr. Pepsi sounds really scary. Like I'm afraid of
I,
Mr. Pepsi.
so this is I'm a diet Pepsi guy, regular
Okay.
guy. I don't know what everyone has their preferences, and I
Yeah.
know as I drink my like hydrating water.
Yep. Right there with you.
Yeah.
No, that's a really cool story. I kind of come from the same sort of path. Like I was in New York City too, doing the same thing. New media. I totally forgot about that expression. Right.
Right.
That because that's what it was. Internet marketing wasn't called internet marketing, it was called new media. Um, so that's really cool. And the fact that, you've built this platform because you needed it yourself is even more intriguing. And yeah, you're giving people just like everybody else all the other tools. It's basically there's a lot of people like myself who are still learning certain things and want simplicity, and we don't want to have to figure out a lot, and we love it when all the software companies, including yours, gives us these tools to make our jobs easier, to be more creative in the field and execute events and not feel overwhelmed, um, having to build this stuff from scratch, because we're not all programmers.
Yeah.
Dave probably got, a little bit in your background, Dave. You've got some skills I couldn't even touch, you know.
One thing I will say is I do have to apologize to every customer support rep I've ever talked to who works at a software company, because what I'm
Yep.
really good at is using software the way it's supposed to work, but that they never intended. Um, and then building this thing, right? It's a behemoth, and the butterfly effect of like you fix one thing and then it touches another thing, and
Hmm.
all these edge cases, right? So it's like I have a lot more compassion for those folks. It's no secret we launched and we went into our private beta and then our sort of public beta, and we just like realized how much more we had to do, and it took us a full year to get this thing to a place where now literally anyone who wants can sign up and go in there and play with it, right? And it's not perfect. That's why,
Hmm.
like I said, we are a photo booth company. We built it knowing what me as a photo booth owner needed, what our staff needed, but that doesn't mean that Art or Dave, you run your photo booth company the same way. So we
Hmm.
really do want to hear from everyone, and that way we can prioritize. We're lucky enough to have like a pretty large dev team, and I want, um, within reason, this sort of feeling that they work for everyone in the community, right? Like if
Hmm.
everybody tells me they need a thing, they need a thing. Who am I to say they don't, right? So the ability to really listen as much as we talk is something that I really hope to be able to continue to do. That's a really important thing to me.
Well, that's really a key thing is taking the feedback that you're getting, implementing those changes, and making it a better product.
Yeah, everyone wins. It's like if your life is easier, we get more of your business. It's like I've been negotiating this contract with a client, and um, the client is great. This is like the third or fourth event we've done with them, but they have a new legal counsel in the office. So he got our contract and redlined everything up, And I got on the phone with the guy and I was just like, hey man, what exactly do you need? Because all I want to do is take your money, put it in my
Yeah.
pocket, have you smiling. What is the way to do that, right? And it's just like literally give you services that you want, right?
Hmm.
So, that's what we hope to be able to do for everyone is like give you services that you didn't know you wanted, and give you the services that you say you want because you know best.
Well, let's dive right into that. Like, a lot of people are watching the show, and there's just this kind of like excitement over what you guys are doing. Do you want to share your screen and just kind of walk
Yeah, I
through?
mean, do we have access to what people are want to hear? Like, can we poll people?
Yeah, so I've got my Facebook thing open now, so
Okay,
people
cool.
can leave questions in there. Um, and if we see a really cool one that makes sense and kind of time that matches up with what we're doing, then we'll ask that. But I want to kind of make sure that you get to go through and show people your back end a little bit. and the
let's
simplicity.
do just that. Let me
And what I'll
go.
do is I'll hide our faces. Yep, he'll come back. He's going to be redoing that. So, guys, while Nicholas is getting his screen ready, um, we'll go ahead and let you know that you can ask questions in the Facebook chat, and we'll be watching them. Dave, if you you can watch and kind of like filter them.
Yep.
But we got a bunch of people. Al from Sketchbots is here. Danny Max, Martin Eduardo Urania. Who else? Andrew Rounds. And then we got another special person called Nicholas is back. There he is. But we
Sorry,
put you over
guys.
on the right.
Chrome crashed.
That's all right.
Let's try that again.
That's Google for you.
Hopefully, if I try sharing my screen again, I do not disappear. Okay, cool. So there's a few things on the back end that I would love to show, but I also would love to hear from other people. One of the
Okay.
things that I think is so special about our software is that we can launch a photo booth, an AI photo booth experience in literally, I can do it in like 7 seconds. You could probably do it in 10 to 15. So I'm happy to show that now if people would like to see.
Yeah, let's see it.
So do we get a live vote or should I just pick one of these?
Just Dave, you pick one.
I'll tell you what, I'm doing an 80s event tomorrow, so let's see something that kind of fits that.
The
There you
totally
go.
tubular 80s?
Let's do that one.
Okay, cool. What is your event name?
Back to the 80s.
Cool. And I'm going to leave today I'm going to make yesterday the start date just so we can preview this. And we'll make the 15th the end date. Cool. Your event is legitimately already built. So I'm going to show you in the virtual side of this how it would look. Actually, let's go over here. I'm going to go in the test side. So we have what we call like a simulator. And this is what the simulation on your iOS device would look like, or Android device. So we have our start screen. We have color-coded terms of service. This is like some real raunchy 80s colors.
Right.
Agree. I can take my photo. I can approve it. Share my gender. Throw in my email address. And off it goes.
Yeah. Let me ask you about that gender. So is that affecting what the outcome of the picture is going to be when you're selecting that?
Yes and no. So we do assign or we do add it as, so from a technical perspective, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Without it, the AI is going to make the assumption on its own. In a world where people may choose a gender that they do not necessarily present themselves as, this allows us to override that. Or if you have your face obscured or any other number of things, this allows you to also give AI an additional suggestion based on its guess. So
Okay.
it could, in theory, operate without that. We find that the results are better with it.
Okay. So what do we got now? What's happening?
Cool. So let me go ahead and just pop this over here, and I'm going to add a virtual booth template. Oops.
Now, do you have templates already in here for people to select?
Yes and no. So the basic account doesn't have a lot of control over these things, but the pro account does. So it's a full HTML editor. It is functional. One of the things that I would recommend now, as we're making this a little bit tidier, same for the email, is that if you do feel comfortable in an HTML zone, I find it a lot easier to work here. This is getting refinements literally as we speak. And we hope to have something, V2 or 3 of this in the next sprint or two. For those of you who don't know what a sprint is, the team works in 2 weeks, 2 weeks schedules, for lack of a better term, where we give them a bunch of things to do for 2 weeks while I work up with the rest of the team on what to do the following 2 weeks. And then we back and forth. So going back now here, this will give us our virtual template. In theory.
So, Nicholas, someone asked, is the app available
Yeah.
to download and try already?
Yeah, 100%. Highly advise you to also buy it, not just try it. Yeah, so there is a free trial that you can sign up. You have access to a lot of the things within the app. You do not have access to the custom prompt builder or some of like the more high octane stuff, like the template builder and things like that. That does require the pro account.
Okay.
But on that note, why don't let's pop over here and let's first off see that image that I created. Here's me. Oh, it's still rendering. But in the meantime, let's pop over and check out the custom prompt editor. So I'm going to pull from the back and photo of someone everyone knows, or in theory most people know, and then we can check out the custom prompt editor.
And this kind of functionality, this would be in like the pro side, right? So they'd
Yeah.
have to send it to the pro to test and to work
Yeah.
with this stuff. Gotcha.
You know, I really don't know, Nick, how you got a picture of me. You know?
Yeah, well, you know, our dev team is very efficient.
Must have been for one of those events I was at.
Yeah, were you at the DJ party, the one in that room with all the lights, right?
Yeah.
Got it. So let's do gender. We'll select male for this. And this, I just want to be extremely clear with people. There is a learning curve on the prompt builder. We support the technical side of the prompt builder. We do not support the creative side of the prompt builder. What I mean by that is if you hit our support chat and say, how do I make this man go on the moon? The answer is you have to play with this to get there. If you are having a problem with a render, that's a different scenario. So I just want to be very clear on what we're able to provide support on and what we're not. Those pre-made prompts that we showed at the beginning, those are things that our team have spent like collectively, like usually about 40 hours a piece on to make sure that they work for people of different shapes and sizes and everything. So I don't want people to come in here and think that this is going to be super easy. You're going to see some cool stuff pretty quickly, but it's the refinement that takes the time. So let's do.
And one more thing. I do have one more question before you get that. The test image, is that affecting the output at all, or is that just something just to look at? Okay.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
the test image is going to affect the output tremendously, right? And that's why you're going to want to, once you start to refine this, upload photos of different people of different shapes and sizes and see how the AI interacts with them as well. So
Gotcha.
You're going to see the likeness of that photo for sure. And then the demeanor will be available. I have a really funny story about an event that we did. It was for a legal startup, and we built this really beautiful watercolor rendition of like a courtroom sketch. And we were so excited about it that we sent it over late on like a Thursday night because we finished it and I like couldn't wait for them to see it. What we didn't know is on their side, they were working late on a Thursday night, not by choice, but by their jobs were stinky and they had to work because their bosses were mean. And at 11:30 at the end of their night, they were like, oh, let's try this AI thing. And the sketches came back with them not necessarily being the judge or the lawyer, but being the criminals because if you went and looked at their source images, they looked like they wanted to murder people. So the AI is going to pick up on every detail, you know, where your shoulders are, your demeanor, all of these things. So yeah, you do need to test it and then test it with more images to make sure you get what you want. At bare minimum, a male, a female, different skin tones. So let's say astronaut. Where are they? Do we want them on the moon or do we want them in the cockpit?
On the moon. Let's do on the moon.
On the moon. Wait, their action is actually going to be, how about?
This is sounding more and more like the MTV like astronaut on the moon, Dave. I know we're hitting that 80s theme, right?
Yep.
Planting a flag on the moon. Let's do that. The setting is cold, cratery moon. I can't spell. I don't think.
I like this how it's laying out different. It's guiding you through how to write a full prompt.
Yeah, exactly. So the lighting, we want cinematic. lighting with rim lighting. So that means a little bit of lighting from behind we're going to try and get. This style is going to be photographic. Oh, let's do documentary style photographic. And any specific details we want, well, let's save that for now. Adjective, let's do proud.
And I like how if you mouse over, it actually gives you examples, right?
Yep.
So right next to adjective. Yeah. To give you some examples of what things to type in there.
Yep. So, oops, let's give it a prompt name.
So essentially, you just hit a button. Which button did you hit there? Select.
Oh, it's going to come back in a second. I hit the render button.
Okay, so you're rendering an example. That's what you're doing.
So it's taking all of these words, the test image, going up to the cloud, hitting our render farm, processing, and then coming back down. This process can take between 30 and 90 seconds on average.
Okay.
So this is time to take a sip of water. You need to go to the bathroom, get a snack.
Right. And I think this is something that like people are gonna have to understand, that this type of generative AI isn't just like an instant thing. So those expectations are going to have to be set when you're at an event, and with the client that booked you, that hey, it's not just like take a picture and boom, it immediately just like puts this beautiful thing together.
100%. And one of the things that I always I think is important, right? So going back to what's that experience in person. Also, I know Art, you're talking about a corporate event with me before the client, before everyone joined us. The reality is, in a corporate event, they're paying big bucks and they got to get their ROI. They need to get dollars, right? So if 10 people use an experience, they're not going to feel like they got their ROI. So the more people you can push through the photo experience, and I say push on this side, but the more people you can have go through the photo booth experience and enjoy themselves, obviously the better the ROI is, right? If something costs $1,000 and you get 1,000 photos, it's $1 a photo. Something costs $1,000 and you get 10 photos, it's $100 a photo, right?
Right.
So in that process, you are able to, what I tell our clients is like, you don't want people waiting for their photo. We want to move them out. They're going to get it on their own device, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still rendering.
It's a little anticlimactic, but it's going to come.
No, that makes sense. And and we talked about, like, there's been some chatter about the trading cards, right? Let's go to the whole printing process. There's people that they're getting die cutters, they're getting paper cutters, and some are saying, well, it's a waste of paper. So the 620A, right? That's the printer that, at least for the trading cards, we found is the most streamlined process, where you're not sitting there with a die cutter and a paper cutter, because that again delays the process of getting your final product, right? And somebody may cut wrong and they got to print another one and cut it again. So that's something you need to take into consideration as well when you're pitching these events. Is, like you said, you need to get as many through as many people as possible to get their product. That it's okay to spend a couple extra pennies to have a more streamlined process.
Yes, 100%. And I like to think, oh, there we go. Ta-da! So I like to think about these things as film, as you would in the old days. Like if you got hired to shoot anything, you would charge your client for the film and the development. It's part of cost of doing business, right? Which is like in the same way, if you are flying to California for a job from New York, you're not just going to pay that out of your own pocket. You have to include it in the price of the event, right? So similarly, if you kind of like back up, we'll just use very rough numbers here, right? So we're going to say it's a 3-hour event. We're going to do, I think you can do between 45 and 55 images an hour. So let's just call it 50. So in 3 hours, we're going to do 150 photos. If the paper costs you, I think it's closer to 3 cents a piece, but it's easier to do the math with 10 cents. So 150, 10 cents, you've spent $15 on paper, right? So that's not an astronomical number, especially if you're charging your client for it, right? So it's
exactly.
You can't have prints without paying for prints. It's how it goes, right? So it's really just about thinking about the value that you're giving your clients in exchange for that.
All right, so here's Brad Pitt on the
Yep.
moon.
Here's
He's
Brad
very
Pitt.
patriotic. He's got two flags, not just one.
Yeah, not just one. He went up there in style. But to give an idea of how we can modify this, so let's actually say flying or piloting spaceship.
Hmm.
And now let's say futuristic cockpit of a spaceship with lots of knobs and buttons.
I got a question about this. This process we're doing here now. This isn't cheap to do. Like this whole experience when you're at an event, and it is a token based system,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Is this part here when we're testing out this rendering? Is this taking away from your tokens?
I wouldn't say it's taking away. It is you're spending your tokens, yes, because the
Okay.
same generation that's happening in the cloud happens for an event or for this process, yes.
So it's
And
better if you kind of have your process down and kind of know what you want, rather than sitting there all night just trying a million different things. Would I be
well,
right in saying
yes,
that?
yes and no, but that's the learning curve, right? And also
Yep.
keeping in mind on our side, if we're spending 40 hours on this, I was telling Art before this, I was working on this really cool prompt and I wanted to drop it today as like a first look. And I spent like, 6 hours on it the last few days and it's not ready, right?
Hmm.
That's hundreds of renders.
Yeah.
So in those presets, we're doing that before it gets to you, right?
Yep.
So, but the short answer is like, yes, you're going to start to see patterns that work for you, but
Hmm.
then some of those things can get totally thrown out the window if you use a different subject, right?
Yep.
So that's why you have to keep massaging these. It's very easy to get like a first look, but then
Yeah.
to find like it may be very difficult to take the second flag out of this. I don't know because I haven't tried that yet.
Right.
But so let's generate here just by putting them in the cockpit now. And while
And so
that's
for those who are worried about cost, no matter what we do, cost is in the back of the mind in terms of running an event. So for the newer folks who, want to kind of be a little bit thrifty to get started with this, it's probably best to use your predetermined prompts that you already have in there.
yes, definitely because they're battle tested. A lot of those
Hmm.
prompts are things that we built for OutSnap clients that were not under NDA, so they're
Yep.
event ready tested prompts. Yeah,
That's cool.
and also to give people an idea of what we charge at OutSnap, we charge a client an average of $10,000 for the custom prompt. That's on top of the event. So that's the amount of work that can go into some of these.
That makes sense.
There you
Wow.
go. So now we
Well,
have Brad in a cockpit. Um, there you go. So we can now modify. And so like specific details, red space suit, let's say glass helmet, and see how that modifies it. So you'll see these very little details are going to go in, and sometimes you'll ask for a thing and you'll see no change. And so you have to figure
mhm.
out how to ask for it in a different way. So
So it's really just the information that you're giving it is what's building the AI.
yeah. So the simplest way to think of this is uh, if you had an illustrator, someone who could draw or paint things, right? And
Mhm.
that person had every single image that's ever been on the internet in their head. And then you went up to them and were like, hey, I would love for you to draw, in this case, an astronaut that looks like Brad Pitt with document in the style of a documentary photograph. It then pictures something in its head, and then, well, I shouldn't say it, then that person, he or she, then paints it, right? So this, in a lot of ways, is sort of that artist's mind, right? So you can do
Yeah.
in the style of a specific photographer because it knows what that specific photographer looks like. So, for example, when this is done, we can abandon this and like try high-end fashion shoot, and you'll see how that is going to look completely different than a documentary style photograph.
Oh
So now
yeah. Look at that.
red spacesuit, and that's so then the next thing you would test is what I would recommend testing is another image. So let's see who uh, here. Let's try another face people recognize. And we got to change this to female. And so, if you use prefer not to say, you're not giving it a gender override.
Okay.
So you can test that as well. And so let's see how this works.
Yeah, I could definitely see how Mr. Pepsi, this would come in handy with Mr. Pepsi, because
Yeah.
he's very particular about what he wants.
So on that note, though, when it comes to Mr. Pepsi, I would not recommend doing a Pepsi logo or anything that needs to be exact. I still highly recommend as an overlay, because in that same analogy I gave you, the best illustrator in the world, if you say paint me the Pepsi logo, it's going to paint that Pepsi logo to maybe pretty close, but Mr. Pepsi wants that Pepsi logo exact, the exact colors, the exact everything. And that illustrator is likely not capable of doing that the same way our AI illustrator is not. So there we go. So you'll see the only thing we changed was the source image in this. And now we're getting two distinctly different angles. They were both pretty straight on front photos, portraits, cropped essentially the same, and we're getting two different outputs. They're in the same world. So what I always like to say in this is, like, if I called you up and described these photos, generally it's a celebrity in a spaceship wearing a red spacesuit and a helmet, right?
Right.
In the Highlights magazine version of it, the angle's different, the cropping's different, the colorization is slightly different. So that the refinement comes in now, going and trying to get those outputs as close as possible repeatedly.
Okay.
And we have a lot of clients that love how crazy AI can be. So we'll do things where, similar to how we did the baseball cards, where you can put in answers, you chose your favorite color. We will have clients who will kind of create these Mad Libs where you get these infinite options, right? So you already have infinite options of what could happen. And then you can multiply it by all these other levers, right? So let's just use the same image now of her, and let's say, what's an adjective, Dave?
You've got to look up what adjective means. I did earlier today with my kids.
Let's do generous, because one thing that Taylor Swift is generous, to her staff at least. Subject, why don't we, instead of making her a musician, let us make her a runway model. The pose is
Cold.
bold. We're going back to the adjective. Okay.
Cold. She's cold. Nah, I don't know if that would ever show, because you can't really express
Bold or
that,
cold?
Bold. Let's go bold.
Okay, that's a good one, because we can try with and without bold, and you'll see the difference in those outputs. The runway model, they are posing during Fashion Week. The setting is high-end, avant-garde fashion party. Avant-garde, one word? Yeah, there we go. The lighting, we want neon, blue, and pink with white strobes. And in the style of a modern fashion shoot. And she's wearing a glass helmet. Let's see what happens with that. Any number of things could happen here. I also want to note that our prompts that we release are highly vetted in terms of being PG-13 at absolute worst. In here, you may end up with stuff that's rated R.
Oh.
Nothing that's rated X, but you may end up with some stuff that's a little bit more risque.
So Dave, it could get expensive.
Yeah.
Listen, nothing's too good for my Tay-Tay.
Jeez. So this is rendering out. Is this still the 80s?
No, the 80s
Oh,
here.
so you jumped over to, okay, I just went, gotcha. That
Yeah, I
was
jumped over to the
to the custom
yeah.
prompts.
What did it sign me out?
We're going to crash your computer. I don't want to do
Oh,
that.
right. Okay. So back here, back to the 80s, and you'll see.
All right, let's see it. What does Nicholas look like in the 80s? There you go, man. Nice mohawk. Oh, there's multiple versions. Look, check it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here we go, Taylor Swift with those neon lights. So one of the things that I use to help with some of the sexuality that we probably don't want coming out at our events is I'll say turtleneck because
Right.
it covers all the skin, right? So uh, specific details, wearing a black turtleneck.
Next sweater.
Yeah,
It's still going to show some cleavage, isn't it?
it
But
could.
AI loves Taylor Swift for some reason.
Well, unfortunately, as I mentioned, that the AI is trained on the internet, which is a place where the people who yell the loudest are the truth. And
Yeah.
there's a reality where more of the content on the internet is perhaps scantily clad than not. So
Yep.
that's what you're combating a lot of the times. So we'll let this render out. Is there anything else in the back end? I know, Art, you got a little time to plan it. Is there anything else you think the viewers would really like to see?
I think just the flow, right? The flow, I think, would be something really cool so people can see, from top to bottom,
Yeah,
um, the different stages
cool.
that's, they can expect when they come into the platform.
Oh, there
There
we
you
go.
go. That's pretty
Snap,
darn close. That's good.
looking great. One of the other things that I love, but I can never spell, is let's just remove bold and
Hmm.
let's do kind, right? Let's just see the difference in them. But one of the
Okay.
things I love is adding iridescence, even though I can never spell it. I like literally.
This is totally a test for us fifth graders out there. Adjectives and spelling.
So this
Who
is
would have thought we would have got that on the show tonight?
this is not the iridescent. This is not what I was looking for. Iridescence. Oh, there it is.
There
Iridescent.
it is.
Ta-da!
Okay.
And then let's put that here. So just changing bold to kind has changed the outfit, her hair,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. Ever so slightly changes.
So I'm
That's
just
pretty
going to
cool.
do iridescent makeup, um, iridescent lighting, and you'll see now how that will really change the sheen of this. So we'll come back to that in a second. So before we go through the back end of the 80s again, let's go through the front end of it so we can call
Okay.
some things out. So we have here our start screen. Tap to start. We have our terms of service.
Hmm.
People can agree or disagree. We have our image taking moment. We have, in this case, our pronouns.
Hmm.
Email, where you can share multiple emails or skip. And then our congratulations page, which goes back to the top.
And can you make the email capture mandatory?
It does not have to be mandatory. Can
But
you
you
make
can
it?
make it mandatory. You
Yes,
can make it mandatory. Okay.
pretty sure. If not, we should. But we'll check that in a second. So let's go to our flow.
Hmm.
And so now we have a few different things. We have our global settings.
Yep.
So this paintbrush up here, you'll see we have the ability to change the color of our buttons, this honkin' border. So I'm just going to remove this border for now. Let's make it 0%, and let's make this 0 and this 0. So they were pill-shaped before. We've removed the radius, and we've removed the color. So just so you can see that happen quickly, let's bounce back in here. Let's give this a refresh.
So people are going to have to know, like, kind of a little bit of learning curve for those who don't know to choose colors and
Yep.
the borders and stuff like that. But yeah, there it is. They removed it.
Yep. So we removed that yellow line and we made these now hard edged.
Okay.
So bopping back in there, we also have modals. So modal is the sort of this. This is literally a modal, right? And
Hmm.
the fact that the screen is not, as it were before, white, the modal is changing sort of the overlay of colors. So we have the ability to change the modal background color, as
Okay.
well as the modal itself, the modal text, the border radius. And then we have the ability to do the background, right? So here we have this like 80s background. I could remove this and just set a solid color like you see here. Going back over here, you'll see once we get past the start screen in a moment.
And I notice you always push save.
Always, yeah. I'm a frequent saver because I'm also a frequent accidental refresher.
Hmm.
So you'll see now this is that modal color, the modal background, the modal itself.
Right.
Now you'll see instead of having that image in the background, we have this color.
Okay.
So the thing that's also really neat is we've kind of, so we have the global settings, but then on every single one of these screens, you have the ability to go and just change the button here because Mr. Pepsi wants this button to be blue, right?
Right.
So the ability to do global and then the minutia. So we have a bunch of different screens, and I'm in my personal account here. So there's some stuff that I don't know, everything here everyone has access to. Cool. So the media screen, which in this case we're using as a start screen, could also be used later in the event to say perhaps you're doing an event for a new movie, and you don't have to. It's a 30-person event for just very important influencers. But before they can email themselves their photo, you want them to watch the 30-second trailer for the movie.
Right.
You can do that here. You can put the movie into the media screen. So it doesn't have to be used as a start screen. We're using it as a start screen here. We also have the ability to have different images on different format devices. So
Okay.
if mobile, you may want something that's literally mobile specific versus web. We also set it up where you can control the text on almost every single button here. Twofold. It's great because Mr. Pepsi may want that button to say something else. Also, if your native language in your country is not English, you can put anything you want on that button.
Okay.
So we innately have translations built into the front end of the experience. We have our terms of service where you can change the title, your literal terms of service, agree or disagree. This is the message they get if people do not agree to the terms of service. We have our AI settings here, where in this case we use the video. In the simple flow, which is what we're looking at now, you can do a video and images, or just images.
So we can do video AI in here.
It's not video AI, it is more like a slideshow. And
Okay.
that slideshow is the first original photo taken, and then four outputs.
Okay.
You can simply choose your prompt here. And if you wanted, you could put in an overlay. Let me see if I have anything here. This is, it's not gonna let me choose these because they're not square, but you can put in any square overlay here. So it's very similar to the other photo booth softwares where you essentially just plop an overlay over the top. In a minute, I'll show you our super advanced editor. So this is how you would add an AI experience. We have our survey, which in this case is not a modifiable survey because that survey is attached actually to that AI prompt.
Okay.
But we could add a survey if we wanted. And this is what we use to customize the baseball cards to get the names and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the ability to ask a question with a text input, email input, phone number input, date, checkboxes, text area, single selection, multi-selection, and a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to delete this just so we don't have it in there. Then we have the ability to share output, allow email. We do not have a requirement, but that is a great feature request. And while everyone's here, I'm going to show off my favorite feature in making this, which is please let us know the things you want.
Right.
And that would be require sharing. And it's suggesting sharing station that is not the same. And this is going to be a feature request. Please make it possible to require a guest to share via email or SMS.
And then people can vote on this. If the question's already there, users can go in and say, yes, me too.
Yep.
I guess that's how you kind of prioritize things. It's like, you got enough
Exactly.
people that want the thing, then that's going to get moved to the front.
Yep. So if we look at this is like one of my favorite things to do. It's one of my home pages in the morning. I can come and look at the new requests. I can see what's trending. I can see what's most voted. So right now, this actually has been released already.
Okay.
In Pro, enable sharing with SMS. So, and that is, the most requested. So we also have custom prompts. So if people want custom prompts, they can request them there, and or they can pay our prompt team to make them for them. So back over here in the flow, allow SMS, etc. The generation is happening. So this is the AI after the output has happened. But as I mentioned, why don't we, just so you can see how this works so seamlessly, let us go ahead and put the share at the top of the experience. And one thing I also recommend is a thank you message. So let's put a thank you message here, so we know that the experience has ended. Thank you for your photo.
Yep.
Take another photo. So that's our button. Anything that you leave blank will not be filled in.
And you can customize that text. There's that little paintbrush, right? So you can pick your fonts and colors and stuff like that.
Exactly. Here, actually, let's do it. So let's go in. Let's change the font for this particular one to.
Give it a script.
Yeah, we're
like a handwritten.
This
Yeah.
unreadable script, and let's make it red. Just some real ugly colors so we can see that this happened. And let's save it. And let's load it up. And now remember, we moved the email collection to before the start screen. So now the first thing it's doing is asking for my email address. I can add multiples. The number one request we got at PBX, which is with the dev team right now, I saw it in first round of QA yesterday, is automated addition of frequently used email addresses. So like when you put in that @, it'll give you Gmail, Yahoo, all of those.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and share this before I've taken it. Now here is that start screen, my terms of service. Now we have the option of these two different. So I'll do the cowboy.
So you can pick two different experiences and not just stuck with one.
Yep. And that's something at OutSnap we charge our clients more for. So if you want more than one, you pay for the second as well.
That makes sense. You're doing these custom prompts.
Well, even if it's from our library, we'll still. Okay. So we encourage people to use that as an add-on versus just a giveaway. But so here's our thank you in script. And let's take another photo. Back to the top. Yeah. So let's bounce back over and see. Yeah, see the iridescence has changed the fabric primarily. I think the last thing that I'd love to show you is sort of our template editor because of how powerful it can be.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'm going to create a new event. And if you do have a pro account, you have this available to you. It's beta, so you do have to hit us in the chat and request access to the beta features. Let's go into advanced, create it. Oops, I need to give it a name. Create that event. And now in the flow section, you'll notice instead of choosing just AI, we have choose experience. You can create a template. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to create a blank template. And let's say this is, sorry, go on.
Let's do the sports card one.
Oh, you want to do it? Okay.
Let's do it. I know a lot of people are anxious to see it.
Okay, I'm going to do 5:7, which I don't think we've determined is not the exact correct ratio, but I don't have the ratios in front of me. So let's start here, and then we can modify. So I'm going to go ahead and add an image. Let's do the front of the sports card.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Canva.
Yep. And let's add the other image.
Now, there's templates out there that are now, it's actually both of them side by side that I've seen come out. Photo Booth Talk has some.
Yep.
They just launched, I think, released them today on where it's like one template instead of two images. They got one together.
So let's go to the position here. And now I'm going to, I know it's 0, 0. The height should be 1600. And I'm going to go ahead and guess it's probably 1545. No. Yeah, the ratio is slightly off. So we want to do 1145. Let me get my little calculator out. 1145 times 2 by 1600. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my template, and I'm actually going to, I'm going to go back to my layouts, and I'm going to do a custom one. So I'm going to do 2290 by 1600. Modify that here, and now that should help us out. So I'm going to go back to the position here, and then this is going to be at that 1145 spot. It's going to start. Nope, I guess here. Great, and this snap to grid. So next, what we can do we want this to be an AI experience, or do we want to go all photo?
Your choice. Dave, what do you think? Let's do an AI, because people are gonna. Yeah, that was one of the things that's really sets you apart from everything else.
So I'm going to set this ratio to 1. I'm going to then do a few things. So as we're here, we can decide this together. Do we want our original photo to be in the back of the card, in the large image, or in the small image?
Let's go to the back of the card.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to be a little sloppy about this because we're going to drop it behind the files. Sorry, behind the overlays in a minute. But now what I'm going to do to create my AI output is I'm going to select Effect, and I'm going to then pick an AI filter. I'm going to select a prompt. And in this case, I'm going to search for baseball. And I'm going to add 2 of these. Now I need to, for this bottom one, I'll show you in a sec, we'll do it. But up here, I'm going to take that and put it all the way in the back, drag it so now I can see where it's got to go. And then for this guy, I'm going to do it in the front first, just so you can see what's about to happen. So this image, to fit in this circle, is going to go over that other image, and we don't want that. So I'm going to add another filter to this, which in this case is our border radius. I'm going to max this out. Let's see, at 100, that's not enough. Let's say 500. Great, there we are. We're at a circle. I'm going to move this down here. Ta-da. And then I'm going to go back to my layers, and I'm going to move this here. And then we have our capture 1. I'm going to move that down. And now that we have everything where we want this, I'm going to scooch this in a little bit more. Oops. And I'm just going to lock these layers now. So one thing we didn't do initially was set up a survey. So let's set up our text, and then we can go back and do the survey after.
Okay.
So similar to Canva, we have a text editor here. I think this text should be white just for ease of reading. I also think that it looks way better forced into uppercase. Dave, the font master, what do you want over here from the left? Pick one.
Let's go Oswald.
Okay.
I thought you were going to pick Roboto.
I was going to.
Oswald it is. Let's do for this one a semi-bold. One thing to note with this Oswald is there is no ital, unfortunately, but that's okay for us. So now I want to get this font to be to take up specific amount of space height-wise, right? So something to note in this, to change the font size, you drag from a corner. To
Hmm.
change the font window where the font can go, you drag from the side. So now I'm going to, I'm not going to do all the math perfectly, or I'm going to go by eye, but I come from, as I mentioned earlier, a magazine background. So if I were doing this by myself in my lonesome, I would be in the math, doing this all by math with a calculator, figuring out how wide this text should be to have X amount of pixels on either side, etc. But here I'm just kind of eyeing it. But if anyone wants to see that, you can see here. So let's say that the width should be 1,000, and we're going to start that at 70. And then we would say that this is going to 1145. So we would want this to be 70 less than 1145. So 1145 minus 70 is 1075. And let's see how off my eye was. Yep, I was off by 75 here. Nope, I did that math wrong. I actually have to do minus 70 twice. Whoops, I did a crazy mathy thing.
My calculator's upstairs.
And also, this is dumb because 175 minus 70 is that. So now we've placed it by math. And I'm also just going to go down here, 83, 85. Let's see where that is. Placement. Cool. Now we'll come back later and we will affect what that survey question is. But one of the ways I test how many characters, W tends to be one of the widest characters. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So to make this safe, I'm just going to say 15. So we're going to say first, last, and we're going to remember 15. Now, what we can do is duplicate this. And I'm going to make this text, let's just make it black for ease here. I'm going to make this 120. That's probably going to be too big. Zeros are typically the widest number. So let's take this and see how it fits into our number spot.
There we go.
And I think it's still a little bit too small, so let's drag from that bottom. And great. And we can kind of massage these into place. And once you take the photo, you're going to have to massage these. Some of these things are not going to render perfectly.
Okay.
And then we'll do a dupe of this for the back. And we're going to increase the font size here because we're going to do company name or team name. And let's make this 100. Great. I'm going to save this as example template. Save it.
So there we've got placeholders for the text that we're going to have customized with the survey.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side, we've got 2 AI photos. Is that right?
Yeah.
And the right one's just going to be the plain, unfiltered,
Right.
untouched capture.
Yep. So we're going to save this. We're going to go back here. I'm going to save again. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in a survey.
Mm-hmm. And this survey is going to basically allow us to feed information to your software that will customize the first name, the company name, and the number, right?
And we want text, and I'm going to put a character limit of 15 on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we want text again. And let's say your team name. And we know we want 15 characters on that. And now your favorite number. And we know that this is a 2-character limit. So we're going to do that, 2. Save that. Close up this survey. Let's go back into our template. And now we're going to go ahead and feed these in. So let's do last name or team name first. So this is not pretty, but it works. So your team name. Now this is your token.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to delete your original text, but you've placed this. You know where it is. It's where you want it.
So it maintains the settings of the text, but you just
Correct.
removed the text there, and the token replaces.
Yeah, because if, for example, you wanted to say number one team,
Mm-hmm.
that text would render before whatever you put in there.
Gotcha. Okay.
That makes sense, everyone?
Yep.
And you can put multiple tokens. So you could do first name and last name and put them in the same field. Then let's do our number here. Let's go ahead and save. Our number. And once again, like I said, not pretty, but you've already done your settings. Ta-da. And then last but not least, let's do our name. And something that I like to show off here, because I'm a show off, is that we can do something really neat. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to position. So we're at 70, and let's just, for the sake of simple math, make this 210. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back to 70 and 210. Now they're on top of each other. I'm going to go to 220 here, and I'm going to go to 80. And now I'm going to change that color. If I was really doing this, I would find this dark purple color.
Mm-hmm.
I've made a drop shadow. And I'm going to go ahead and put that behind the other.
Oh, cool.
And that drop shadow, it's not bad. I might want to do it a little bit more subtle. So let's go and let's actually, this is why everything I do takes so long and my developers hate me, because I'm like, oh, let's actually just shave five pixels off that. It's going to look better. But that truly does make a difference at the end of the day of which output is going to look the best, because you've massaged it to be as close to what you deem to be perfect, right? So now it's just a hairline. So that's not going to be as obvious, but that name is going to pop more.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and save that again. I'm going to close this. I'm going to save this. And in theory, it's going to run right now. I'm going to just add an email screen just so we are aware of the fact. Oh, sorry, not an. Let's see. I lied. Let's do an email screen. Share output. So we know that we got to the end of the experience. And I'm going to go.
That's just telling the software to push out to that email that you prompted in earlier.
Yeah, I'm doing it more just so when we're going through, we're like, oh, we hit the email. We know that the flow is done.
Okay.
So here we have, unlike a preset, all of these things are going to be blank now. So our start screen has nothing on it.
Yeah.
Our survey has nothing on it. But I'm going to say, so how do we hide you? Well, do that another time. Team name, photo booth Mac. 82. Next. Take my photo. One of the funny ironies of me running Pictor is that there are certain people who just do not work in AI. And I am one of those people. It is very funny. I think it has something to do with my mustache. But it is important for you to know when you're talking with your clients, you have to be very upfront with people. Some people are just not going to be perfect. Other people, it's going to be a spitting image of them.
Right.
And our output is generating. And now we're at that email screen, which I just put here so we knew that we got to the end of the flow.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can go back to the back end. And just make sure it's saved. And we can... You won't be doing this at your live event, but you do have access to the queue where you can see the progress of everything.
Right.
And get to keep refreshing that. But once this comes through, you'll see my AI as well as our custom text.
Now, are you guys going to have a print server at some point?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah, so that's a really good example. So our print server was used by OutSnap. I'm not often the person who's on site at our events anymore, and it works. But when I was at PBX running the photo booth experience for for everyone who's participating, I was not psyched with the setup. I thought it could be a lot easier and a lot better. So
Hmm.
it's called grooming. You define the things that need to be fixed or bug ticket, and we went
Yep.
in and essentially redesigned the way it connects. Something that I like is there's a big green essentially light that tells you you're connected or not connected,
Okay.
because a lot of times you're kind of guessing if you're connected. But some of the functionality with paper sizes and things like that wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. So that's in this sprint again. I should get first looks of that beginning of next week. And
Okay.
then,
And so the process now would be, um, if I remember correctly, hooking up Dropbox, right? And then DNP hot folder to look for
yeah,
to grab the image, and
yeah.
then it.
So you could use a Dropbox, which
Yep.
is included in your account. Well, connection to Dropbox is
Right.
included. Excuse me. And then you can use any watch folder printer. I know Breeze has one.
Okay.
GNP has their own. There's a bunch. There's one that I use that's a high-end print spooler. Because if we're doing an event where we're printing, say we have 5 photo booths and then we have
Yeah.
one print server, what it does is it will literally go through and round robin print each of those printers. So that's
Hmm.
the one that I use for this as well, even though we only have one printer.
Kind of like that's what the amusement parks commonly do, right? They've got so many people
Probably
coming
not.
through. They're just whatever printed open, it's just going to shoot it over to that one.
Yep. And so here we are. This was completed from receipt in the cloud to
Hmm.
delivery via email. I didn't put in my email address, but it would have been delivered by email within 1 minute,
Oh wow.
including the AI and then the sandwiching and processing and all that. So let's go ahead and look at this.
There we go.
And then zoom in on myself. Here's my original photo, my 2 AI outputs, my name, my email address, and my team name. One other thing that I will show you that I think is super cool, going back over here, and this is something that I haven't tested this in a minute, but I'm pretty certain it's going to work. So, and this is something that I think is super neat. Okay, so we're going to go here. I'm going to do a capture. I want this to be aspect ratio 1:1. I'm going to pull this up to here. I'm going to duplicate this out. For the sake of making you all watch me take my selfie, I'm going to do something else that I think is neat, which is where I can just assign capture 2 to be the same capture as capture 1. So it's only going to
Okay.
take one photo and repeat me 3 times. I'm going to then just put a little bit of text down at the bottom. I'm not going to customize this just so we know it's there. Conceptually, I'm going to go back over to my images and let's do so we can get.
No, so you're making a photo strip live in front of our eyes here.
Yep, and I'm going to do something else that I think is really neat, which
Oh.
is then add. And if I went into obviously a stock library, I could get old photo look and feel, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to take this, I'm going to blend it to a multiply. So now we're really only going to get those dark bits. I'm going to save this as photo strip. And so this is a fully non-AI experience that we're doing now, but you could do AI on that photo strip. It's asking me survey questions, even though we don't need them for this because I didn't take the survey out. So here's our choice. This is getting a redesign now as well. I'm really excited. It looks just way more modern, sleek, beautiful, easy to use. And I'm going to go ahead and take a photo. remembering that I am using that same photo now 3 times. Ta-da! In real time preview. It's a little hard to see, but see that overlay?
Okay.
Let's here, if we do it this way, it will work.
So what essentially did you do there? You took that background, right? And you multiplied it. Is that what you did? And made
Yeah,
that.
so all the transparency layers that you have in Photoshop, we've incorporated here.
Oh
So
wow.
if I go ahead and zoom in on this, you'll see that
Oh, okay.
the darker parts multiply essentially will only show things that are darker. So now if I
Interesting.
were to go, for example, old Polaroid
Yeah.
image blank, you can do one of these together real quick just so you can see. Let's get one that has a bunch of like real weird ratty stuff in it.
Like the coffee spills.
Yeah, but we need something like in the image itself.
Okay.
Here,
Okay. Yeah. Give it that vintage look.
save this image to my desktop, and then let's go back to
And so this here, when you're not using the AI, that's not taking tokens, correct?
correct.
Okay, gotcha. I know that's going to be a question that people are going to ask.
So let's go here, and now I'm going to do a new template. I am going to make this 1-to-1. I'm going to upload an image. I'm going to pull this up. I'm changing the ratio here, which is something I would normally yell at anyone who they did it, but I'm splooshing just for the sake of this. And now I'm going to take an image of myself, a capture, and I'm going to, it's going to be,
There we go.
well, I accidentally got the wrong here. So we're going to actually have to make this work out of the box like this, we have to kind of fudge something, which I will do here by just doing this, because I'd rather squoosh the background image than the foreground image. Because I don't want to be squooshed, but I'm okay with this being squooshed.
There you go. So Nicholas, I know a lot of people some people use different versions of the iPads. Is there a preferred? Obviously, the newer, better ones are the preferred ones. But have you tested this, or has it been tested on like the older models?
Yeah, I mean,
or is it a certain OS version?
So I think it boils down to the image quality, right? Mostly, like we are doing most of our processing in the cloud, so that isn't as important. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get better quality the newer the iPad you use. Ironically, with AI, you don't need as high res an image. So the older iPads, it's not counterintuitive, actually do better with AI than they would with a normal photo.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. But I know a lot of people, that have 4 or 5 year old iPads out there in their booths. And
Talking about processing speed.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, it's going to be, the answer is yes to both, right? So obviously a better iPad is going to give you better results always. So I'm just changing this to preview here so I can actually see how the overlay is going to affect the output. So I can go back here and these different layers. So darken is going to be different.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Lighten
Starting
is
to do
going
it.
to be different. Screen is going to be different. So you have all these different things you can try. Color burn is going to be different.
to really give it that vintage look.
Yeah. And so you can keep playing with this. So like light leak, for example. So you could take this and put it over the top of it now.
Oh, cool.
So there's just layers and layers of fun that you can do without ever leaving Pictor.
It's crazy.
And so these
and
are
of course, we're not advocating going out to Google and grabbing images. You should have a subscription to.
Yeah, we use Adobe Stock Library. This is for illustrative purposes only, which is covered by fair usage. But now to show you how this, so we actually want to screen that.
Oh, wow.
Remove the black, whereas multiply is only going to show the black. Color burn.
Okay.
You can do lighten's another one you can try.
That's really cool.
This literally will work right now if I save it as Polaroid. And we'd be able to action it in real time. I'm getting bold here. If our developers are watching, like, maybe you shouldn't stack all those.
But that's how you do it. Like as someone who works in software, your job is to break things.
Yeah.
You got to push the limits because all these people out here, including myself, we're going to break it. We're going to try so many different things.
Yeah. So I broke it. So that's me going back and saying, hey guys, we need to be able to do 2 layers.
Yeah.
We'll get it for you because I want it. Right. Like, I'm like, why not? And they're like, well, you just never asked. That's what happened.
The way it is.
They're
not mind readers.
Our dev team doesn't work events, so they don't know the things that we do all the time.
Well, this is some pretty cool stuff, Nicholas. I just want to thank you for showing all of this. It's a lot. Like there is a lot to poke around with and play and customize, but that's the beauty of it. It's just it's gonna be endless.
Too much.
Yeah, no, it's great. You're bending a lot of people's minds right now, which is cool. That's what we want. We want to push ourselves to the limit because that's how we get better, right? In this industry, not just by keep doing the same thing over and over again. We're giving experiences, and this is a really, really cool tool you've just given us. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for chatting. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you to everyone who's watching in advance for the feedback. I can't say it enough. Like, I'm just going to share. I don't need to share again. That we have that feedback button in the bottom corner. Please use it. Please, please, please. And we have 24/7 support in that bottom right corner as well. Any questions you have, we're constantly building out our support docs, etc. So please, anything you need to make your lives better, easier, let us know. As everyone who's in a relationship knows, we can't read your minds, despite everyone wanting other people to read their mind. So let us know what it is you need. Help us help you, or help you help us, or help everyone help everyone.
And what is the website is Pictor.pro, right?
Yeah. To sign up for an account, it's app.pictor.pro.
I'm going to put that on the screen here so people can say app.pictor.pro.
Yep.
I'm going to save that. I'm going to put that on the screen here.
That's the one.
Did I spell it right? Thank God.
Yes.
Our 5th grade spelling today. It's crazy. And I saw a laptop, right? So is this strictly just for iPhones? Does it do Androids? Does it do Windows? Like, tell us about that real quick.
So currently it's iPhone and Android. We do have that virtual component, which runs on Mac, PC, any device, right? So the native app is available in the App Store and the Android Store.
Okay.
But then, yes, you can operate. We've done events where you're running it on a PC or on a Mac, depending on what's needed. We've also done virtual events. We did an event for Intuit where we had 70,000 people use our virtual experience.
Wow.
I still, after all these years, we've done thousands of what were truly virtual events, but now we're mostly doing what I call like advertorial campaigns or marketing campaigns. Mm-hmm. So we still have yet to come up with a great name for the photo booth in your pocket or whatever it may be. But yeah, we've done 70,000 uses of an AI output in 72 hours.
Oh my God.
we can handle it. We're built to scale up and down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Nicholas. And
Yeah.
for everybody else watching, again, it's app.pictor.pro. Go check it out. There is you can sign up for a free trial of the basic. And then if you want to upgrade to get the more advanced features, that's the pro version. So,
Yep.
and there's more trainings and stuff like that coming out. So thanks again.
Yes. And please reach out through the help channels. As someone who is easily distracted by shiny objects, I try and stay off of Facebook. So if you send me a message there and I don't respond, it is nothing personal. It could just be weeks before I see it. We, in our Pictor support channel, we have a community person who is there and responding, and we have our support chat. So please do not take it personally if I do not respond to you immediately. We have people who are waiting to respond to you immediately. You just have to talk to them. So please do reach out, and we're here for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicholas. And folks, we'll see you at the next episode. Maybe
Awesome.
next week, maybe not. We're kind of casual about it, but we'll see you next time.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye, everybody.